thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, what's up? It's Sky from Sumo Psycho, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the Rockstar Robbie Vegas bringing you another brand new episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. Another check-in episode. We're here today once more with April Hunter, talking about her podcast, some con appearances, and just getting into some fun lightning round questions. I know you guys loved when we had April on the first time, so I'm glad that you're back with us, checking it out. And if you're a first-time listener of the podcast, or you joined us after April was on before, please go back and check out the first one as well.
Empire State Wrestling returns Saturday, September 23rd to the Frontier Fire Hall in Niagara Falls, New York for ESW Turn It Up, featuring former WWE superstar Scotty 2 Hottie going one-on-one with the Inspiration Gregory Iron. Also, Invincible Vince Valor faces off with big-time Bill Collier in a brother vs. brother #1 contendership match for the Empire State Wrestling Heavyweight title. Christina Marie battles Taylor Rising. Also in action, you'll see the Holy Hand Grenade, James Sega, the Rockstar Robbie Vegas, the Empire State Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, the remix of Professional Wrestling Kevin Bennett, and much more. That's ESW Turn It Up, Saturday, September 23rd, Frontier Fire Hall, 6 p.m. bell time, and you can get your tickets at ESWTix.com.
So, April, the first thing I want to do is thank you for coming back on the All Bets Are Off podcast, your second time here.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Of course. I kind of wanted to just do a check-in with you. It's been a while since we talked to you, and, the last episode that we had did so well that I figured, why wouldn't your fans want you to come back?
Well, I'm still crazy. I still have red hair. Not much has changed.
Well, let's kind of talk about some things that have been going on. Before I even really get going, you've been doing con appearances lately, right?
They're hit or miss. Depends on the season.
Yeah.
So, I was doing quite a few in the spring. Right now it's summer. So now it's all about doing the podcasts. I have mine, which is the A Show with April Hunter, and that's a weekly show. And just sort of, I just came off of a 1 week long photo shoot, which was a lot of work.
Well, I want to get into. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was a lot of work.
Well, I want to get into the photo shoot and I want to get into the podcast, but just sticking with the con thing for a second, I got to know, so you've done a bunch of these in your career. What is like the craziest thing somebody's ever had you sign?
Oh my gosh, I've signed so many weird things. I can tell you one of the coolest things I ever signed was a guy had a WCW jacket with almost everybody's name on it. And he had an NWO section. It was like an NWO jacket. And he had almost every one of our signatures on there.
Oh, wow. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. So he must have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, to collect that many. I mean, the NWO was huge. So to have all of you on there, that's a big deal.
Yeah, not all of us are around anymore. So it was, pretty impressive, his dedication. I was like, hey,
Do you get a good mix of, like wrestling fans as opposed to just fans who like the cosplay and things like that? Or do you find they're like one and the same?
No, they're not. I get a little bit of everything because I started off as a burlesque dancer and a centerfold model doing Playboy and I was a fitness model too. So I did Playboy and Ironman and Metrics and, all the centerfold stuff. So I have those fans, and then I went into, wrestling, and in between, well, actually I started doing cosplay first before everything. Cause I started cosplay way back when Lara Croft came out. So I've been doing all of these things. So I get a mix of all types.
Wow.
The wrestling fans are the most challenging at times, but they're also the most, loyal.
What makes them the most challenging?
They're the cheapest. By far.
I was going to guess that because being an indie wrestler, I understand that, but I didn't want to assume that you were dealing with the same thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're all, yep.
That's so fun.
Yep.
So you said you're coming off a week-long photo shoot, right?
Yes.
So is that because you build up like your content, like save it up for a long period of time and kind of release it as you go? Or like, what's the reason for the week long of shoots?
Yeah, pretty much. Either I'll go somewhere for a week or a photographer will come stay here for a week. And in this particular case, I work with a couple of really good photographers over and over again. And this one his name is Steve Griffey. He comes down from Indianapolis. He is just amazing. And I see him about twice a year. And he will crash on the other side of the house and we'll just shoot. And we did cosplay, we did centerfold stuff, we did all, artsy nudes, we did everything. And we knock it out. And then the 3 days after that, I hurt and don't want to do anything else.
Hang out with the pets.
Yes. Yep. Just lay on the floor and stretch and exactly.
Well, speaking of the pets, do you take in rescues? Is that what it was?
Yeah, all lives matter. Yeah. It's a motley crew. Up until a year ago, or this year, basically, I'm the crazy chicken lady. So I rescue chickens.
Oh, wow.
So I've had quite a few hens and one rooster. My last two are factory escapees that I had. And then I also, I love the birds. They're so different. So I have I'm like an amateur vet with the birds. You have to have a whole vet kit with them because birds are just different. By the time they actually show that they're sick, they're usually on their way to dying. So you have to be ready with it for anything with them. And I've taken in, I've had a crow here and multiple dogs I foster, and I've got one cat. This is my second Maine Coon that I have adopted. So yeah, just I actually have a corgi, a purebred corgi, and a purebred Maine Coon. They're all rescues.
Wow.
People get them and they're just like, this is not what I thought. And I've written multiple articles about why you might not want a corgi, because this is my third. And my second rescue. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you see them on the internet and they look so cute with their little fluffy butts and all this stuff. I'm like, but there's a real hard side to the corgis, and they have an ear shattering bark. They are type A. They are going to chew all kinds. There's all kinds of stuff going on with them. So yeah, I've got myself a wild child here.
Wow. So when you're taking in all the rescues and I mean, you just rattled off a slew of animals that you have right now. Do you keep them all or do you rehome them, or how does that work?
It depends on what it is. I've rehomed the chickens. Okay. I have rehomed almost everybody except for one cat and two dogs. And the second dog is a boxer pit bull, and he was just supposed to be, I was his medical foster, and he was here for heartworm treatment and recovery, and he just fit in so well. I just, they're like, oh, it's time to put him up for adoption. And I was like, no. So he stayed.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. So earlier you mentioned your podcast, which I wanted to get into because I believe the last time I talked to you, I don't even think you were doing it yet, or maybe you were just starting it. I can't really recall off the top of my head. So let's just kind of focus on that for a minute. So what made you want to even start a podcast to begin with?
Vince Russo, basically. Many years ago, I did his podcast when he first started. Mm-hmm. And we got done. And he's like, you really need to have your own show. And I was like, oh, I've got so much going on, with work and all these things. And I went back to school. I was like, I don't think I have time for another thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, when you're ready, let me know. I was like, okay. And I've always been a writer. Mm-hmm. I've been writing since I could, basically hold a crayon, and I have, my blogs and Patreon and, cheap plug, a Patreon, April Hunter, and, aprilhunterblog.com. But yeah, I've always been a writer. And then I realized maybe I'm not a writer. Maybe I'm a communicator. Because, freedom, and I guess freedom is a big thing for me. Yeah. And, deception and lies are also a big thing with me. I think that we are entitled to the whole truth and the full disclosure of anything. And I believe Americans only get part of the truth, and that there's very much a divide and conquer agenda in this country. And this is a problem. So when the opportunity for a podcast to come up happened during COVID, when all the shutdowns happened, Aaron Stevens, who's one of my best friends, he's like, let's do this, and we just, we started the A Show, for lack of a better term, Aaron and April. And we went to Russo's Guys, which was Hammond Media Group, and they brought us on. Now, Aaron since went over to Fox, and he got picked up to do Tyrus's podcast. But I'm still working on our original podcast, and I have Big Ray Hernandez as my co-host.
So when you originally started the podcast, was it for that platform of, talking about social issues and things going on in this country, or did that just kind of naturally happen?
Yeah, it was because I was seeing so much misinformation marketed and pushed as experts and real information. And I was seeing so many people censored who were actual real experts because they were going against the narrative. And there were just alarm bells and red flags everywhere. And I was like, this is not right. There was so much going on here. And this is actually a life and death situation. I mean, this is actually a life and death situation here. And people they're not getting the information that they need. And I just felt called to do anything that I could with that. But we also delve into a lot of esoteric topics, about quantum theory, quantum physics, positive and negative energy. And we try and cover good news stories that aren't being covered and things that aren't, just different things. Like, for example, there's an app that somebody started called White Flag app. So if you're in a crisis, it's a peer-to-peer app, and you can get on there and put in as much information as you're comfortable with, and you'll be assigned to somebody who might be able to help you. It's almost like an AA, but before raising the white flag. So information that can help people, we try and connect them to stuff like that.
So you're on your Twitter, your Instagram, the podcast. You're one of the people that I constantly see keeping these issues in the forefront, and you don't care how many people stand against you or what they have to say, because you just hit them right back with, A, B, and C. And I think it's actually really refreshing. And it's one of the reasons why I love to follow you on social media. Do you see more support or pushback for what you're doing? Support,
usually. I stopped caring what people thought a long, long time ago. And I think that is the secret to happiness. I believe we are a society. Part of the sickness in our society is because we are such people pleasers, and we want to be liked and popular. And that is a real problem, to the point where we will bend over backwards to do things that are wrong. Even if we know they're wrong, we'll still do them. Because we don't want to go against the grain. We don't want to speak against the authorities. We don't want to seem unpopular. We don't want to say something wrong. And I stopped caring about that a long time ago. So I'll take the hit. I'll get punched in the face. I'll roll. I don't care. If something is right and no one else believes in it, it doesn't make it less right. If something's wrong and everybody's doing it, it doesn't make it less wrong.
I agree with that 100%. Now, earlier we were talking about the type of fans that you have in like cosplay, wrestling, and modeling and things like that. Do you have a totally different fan base when it comes to these things in your podcast? Or are we seeing a mix of everybody? Like, what are you finding in that realm?
It's kind of a crossover of everyone.
So that's actually really cool to hear.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everybody, I think. It's nice. I actually thought I would have way more people on my podcast than I do. So I was disappointed that I don't, but I also realized that I started a podcast at the worst possible time you could start one, because everybody and their mother started a podcast then. Literally.
You're right. You're right.
So I once heard that if your podcast, the average podcast does not last 18 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're still going, you're doing something right.
All right. I'm doing something.
Yeah. 3 years later, I'm still going. So I guess I'm doing something right. So I will say this, we haven't lost anyone, and we have a lot of the same original people who started with us. They're still there live with us every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people aren't fond of doing live podcasts. Like they want to pre-record it. So things don't get, so they have a little bit more editing control.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I like to fly by the seat of my pants. I'll do it live with guests, and you never know what's going to happen or what people are going to say. So it's just more fun that way. So we do it live. We just do it live.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
We do it live.
So you said it's a weekly show. So just for listeners of mine that haven't heard or seen your podcast yet, when does it come out? Where can they see it?
It comes out Wednesday nights from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's on Twitch. It's twitch.tv, The A Show. We're on Rumble under The A Show. Just look us up. We're also on YouTube. And we're on all the major podcast platforms as well, like Podbean and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we do replays. There's replays too, but the community we have over there for in the live chats and stuff, they're a lot of fun. So we like to say that we are the moderate voice of reason. And smart is the new sexy, because we're not left, we're not right. We're like right down the middle. And a lot of our viewers are also moderates. They're somewhere in the middle. And it's there's a whole lot more of us than they would have you believe. So there's a lot of people out there who don't subscribe to the left or right theology. Mm-hmm. I call it theology because it is a new religion, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. So now, you're on Wednesday nights, you said, and you do have different guests come on. So mm-hmm. Who are some either future guests that you're excited to have that maybe you haven't announced yet and we could hear about it here? Or who are some of your favorite guests that you've already had on?
Oh, gosh. Well, tonight we had on the drummer from Weapons of Anew, Julius Caesar Mendoza. So this was a band that is just starting to trend really, really big right now. So he came on and talked to us about their tour they just got off of and what's going on with them. I have had on Larry Lowenberg, a dream translator, and apparently what we see in our dreams has to be translated because it can't be taken literally. Like, for example, if you have a sexual dream, it's not usually about sex. It's about trying to connect with somebody or trying to encompass something that they have. So, and she will translate people's dreams when she's on. We've had on Mick Foley, Trevor Murdoch. We've had, oh my gosh, who else? We have on a variety of musicians, psychics, mediums,
Wow.
all kinds of interesting types of people.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So it's just anybody unusual.
Yeah, I was going to say
homesteaders who teach us how to can and preserve and little things you can do, how anybody can grow something.
Wow.
That type of thing. Yeah. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
How are you finding some of these people, or are they finding you?
It's a little of both. More of them are finding me now, but in the beginning I was finding them.
Okay.
I think anybody that's interesting and has a story and something they can share with people that would be beneficial to them, I'm interested in.
Okay, that's awesome. So I want to circle it back one more time, just to wrestling real quick before we get into the next thing, and just ask you, do you still do wrestling related appearances, or do you tend to gravitate towards everything else at the moment?
I'll occasionally do signings. Last year I was at WrestleCon, but for the most part, I tend to lean towards more of the other appearances more than wrestling. It doesn't mean I don't like doing the wrestling stuff. I just don't get that many opportunities, and the money isn't in wrestling like it used to be. So because I live in Tampa, unfortunately, you pretty much have to fly anywhere from Tampa, and then it's if I lived in Louisville like I used to, that's not such a big deal. That's why UPS is based in Louisville. It's a day's drive to pretty much everywhere from Louisville. But
Right.
for here, it's, you pretty much have to hit the airport, and a lot of people can't afford the extra expenses to bring somebody in.
Well, a lot of promoters are a lot like wrestling fans. They're cheap.
Okay, you said it better than I did.
All right, so this next part is purely for fun. It has nothing to do with absolutely anything. This is just for our listeners to have a little fun, and it's a lightning round where you're just going to pick a this or that.
Ooh, I love these.
All right, so first one, New York or Chicago-style pizza?
New York,
Beach house or a cabin in the woods?
cabin in the woods,
Why?
solitude. I mean, I like both. Don't get me wrong, but I love mountains.
Yep.
Mountains and woods.
Horror movies or rom-coms?
Ugh.
Is there a third option?
Right. Is there sci-fi, like thrillers?
We can say sci-fi or thriller, yeah.
Okay. If not, I'll go more rom-com than horror.
Some of my listeners just now went, damn it. Rock
I
and
go to the
roll.
horror conventions though, and they're amazing.
Aren't they? So they're
Yes,
some of
they're
the
so much
coolest
fun.
things.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of those have you been a part of?
A lot. I've been doing that for a long time because I've done some horror films, so I get invited to work the conventions on a regular basis, and I freaking love it. It is the best community ever.
It really is, and that makes your answer even funnier because you're like, I've done horror films, and I'm like, horror movies or rom-coms? And you're like, none.
No, okay, don't get me. Okay, I don't like straight up horror movies, but I love thrillers.
No, that makes sense. A lot of people are like that though.
Yeah, I don't like the cheesiness of horror movies, but I like if you like have like Ringu, like the Japanese version of Ring, or like Hostel, I'll watch that.
Okay. So like anything along the lines of like Hostel, Saw, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next lightning round question. Rock and roll or country music?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Right answer. That's the only one that had a right or wrong answer. You got it right.
Although I have been known to love, the occasional country song.
More than me.
There's a couple of good ones out there that you can, but yeah, rock and roll.
I wouldn't even know them. Like if somebody was like, this is by whatever big country artist right now, I'd go, who?
The one, hang on, there's one, I think it's Jamie Jameson. Am I saying that right? Hang on, Jamie. Sorry, Jamie Johnson. So I always say Jamie Jameson because the wrestler. So
No.
I'm like, Jamie Jameson. Yeah, Jamie Johnson. Check out some of his stuff. His is pretty good.
All right. That's something for me and my listeners to check out. Are you a morning person or a night person?
Night person all the way. I freaking hate mornings.
Oh, man. You're preaching to the choir on that one.
Oh, my God.
Movies or books?
That's a good question. I'm going to say movies now, but I always used to be about books.
Mhm.
You know what my problem is? I'm so embarrassed to say this too, because I'm an author and a writer, and I hate admitting this, but my attention span is shot. Like it's hard for me to sit down and read and stay focused.
Really? You find it easier to stay focused on a movie?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
I know. And when I do sit down and read, I need to dedicate time to it. That's not right before bed, or I end up with the book, crashing on my face.
Yeah, right. Of course.
But when I do find a good book, it's always about the book. It's like the book is good. Like World War Z was way better as a book than it was the movie. It was such a good book.
I've never read that, but I have seen the movie, so I'm going to have to read the book.
Oh, the book was amazing.
Well, speaking of books, and you've mentioned a few times that you're a writer, you have your blog, but I think I've even mentioned this to you before in the past. Autobiography coming?
So many people ask me to do one. I don't even know where to start, honestly. It's so weird. I wouldn't even know where to start. I feel like I've lived like 3 lifetimes and I wouldn't even know which one to write about.
Well, I'm going to recommend starting at I was born in, and then go from there.
That's the most boring part.
All right, this is the last lightning round question. You're going through the Bermuda Triangle. You taking a plane or a boat?
Probably be more fun on a boat, right?
Well, that's the follow-up question is why?
everything's more fun on a boat. A plane, you're just ripping through there.
So, I mean, let's stay on that for a second, just the Bermuda Triangle in general. Do you have theories or thoughts about the Bermuda Triangle?
We actually had somebody on to talk about that. We've had a few people on, but we had Linda Martouche on, who works with Dr. Greer. She's a alien and contact specialist. There you go. You want to know who we have on? She's one of my favorites to have back. And she was talking about that, and she believes that time is not always linear, and that there's a lot in the metaphysical world that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. And when we can't understand it, we're quick to crap on it or quote unquote try to debunk it. But there are just things that we're not able to comprehend quite yet. And underneath of, what do you call it? Underneath of, is it Bermuda? Underneath of Bermuda, I think, is something called, Bermuda or Bahamas, is something called Bimini Road that they've discovered, mm-hmm. which was an old road that they believe belonged to Atlantis.
Really?
Which was an advanced civilization that got wiped out, and then we came along.
Yeah.
So she said that, and then I guess a year later, it came out scientifically that there are all these advanced civilizations that we've built, these older cities that we built cities on top of, that we now have the ability to detect and date, mm-hmm. Carbon dating and all that. So it was interesting. Like I said, her theory is we do have all these roads underneath of the water, and things just disappeared. And I don't really have a theory about that particular that particular situation, but I do think there are things out there as far as energy that we don't get. We don't understand it yet.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And that alone, what you were just talking about, should be enough for my listeners to want to listen to your podcast, because that's the type of stuff that a lot of my listeners are interested in. Like that, that sucks me in. Like right before we did this, I was watching theories on King Tut and the things that they're trying to debunk about him and his tomb and what he was actually like and how he really looked. And there's some really crazy things in there. They found a dagger in his sarcophagus that was made out of iron that was from space. And they just things like that make you go, how?
Yeah. I mean, I think that humans are not comfortable with saying, I don't know. We have to come up with a story, a plausible story for everything, or else, quote unquote, it's bullshit. And that's just simply not the case. I mean, if you think about it, at one point, we made up stories about the sun rising, and setting because we didn't understand why it happened. So we had stories about it to try and understand it back then. The entire world, and of course some people still do, the entire world thought that the earth was flat. Mm-hmm. And to say anything against that, you were an idiot. If
yeah.
So people are wrong sometimes, and we're not comfortable with being wrong, and we're not comfortable with saying, I don't know, or I don't know this yet, or we don't understand it yet. We just automatically feel the need to debunk things, mm-hmm. and crap on them, and then claim that that's the correct answer. And I don't know if it is. I think, I think it's very, very, very egotistical to assume that we are the only life form in the entire universe, right. And that we are the highest life form. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, all this news coming out too about non-human bodies being found and things like that, and it just seems like everybody just kind of blew it off.
Well, that I think that has more to do with our society today than anything else. I think there's a group of people that have always known that there was life out there, mm-hmm. and now what you have is a society that is so jaded that whatever the government tells us, they're like, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, for 3 years, right? And we're still being told this for 3 years, everything was safe and effective.
Right.
So it's safe and effective, and you have to take it for other people, or you're a grandma killer. And if you don't take it, we're going to out you, and you can't do anything. And then we find out, it's not effective. And
Right.
then we find out it's not safe. Then we find out you're not going to kill grandma. And then we find out all these things that we were promised by the highest in the land, the highest authorities in the land, the highest, smartest experts in the land were all lies. So now when they come forth and they tell us, and they wrecked people's lives for it.
Yeah.
They wrecked their businesses. They wrecked their lives. They wrecked their marriages. They wrecked their mental health over this.
Mm-hmm.
So now when they tell us, hey, there's aliens, people are like, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is very true. You got a bunch of people just got online and they were like, I can't wait to make a meme out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which they did a great job doing. So, I think that alone, like everything we just talked about for the last few minutes, is like the fact that your podcast dives into things like this is worth listening to, worth promoting. So before we get you out of here, can you just remind us once again the name of the show and where we can catch it? Because I really want to push this out to my listeners.
Oh, sure. It's the A Show with April Hunter. You can see me on Twitch, Rumble, YouTube, all the podcast platforms. We are live on Wednesday nights from 7 until 8:30 Eastern. You can also find me on Instagram, Real April Hunter, on Twitter, April Hunter, Patreon, April Hunter, and aprilhunter.com. How about that? That was easy, right? Perfect. I'm so easy to find.
Yeah.
I'm like so easy to find. Just look up April Hunter or Real April Hunter, and just like that, I'm there.
Well, and you beat me to it. I was going to say then plug the rest of your stuff, but you knew it was coming.
You're good, though.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for being here. I love having you on the show. And like I said, that last episode we did really well. Like my listeners loved having you. So I'm excited to get this out for them.
Awesome. Well, tell them thank you. Hey, I'll tell them, hey, thank you for listening to my stuff. Thank you for visiting me. And if you end up stopping over and watching the podcast, drop me a note in the chat and tell me that you're coming from over here, and I will say hi to you for sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much, April. I will let you go and enjoy your night, and I will let you know when this drops.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good one, Robbie.
You too. All right, rockers, once again, April Hunter. Follow her on social media. Be on the lookout for her upcoming appearances, and check out and subscribe to The A Show. And we will catch you guys next time on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.